Hey everyone, welcome back to this Making the Movement here at the OurSociety Experiment. In today's Making the Movement, we're going to be talking about the concept of collaborative democracy, one of the core principles of the OurSociety organization and one of the core functional benefits of using the OurSociety platform. So before we understand collaborative democracy, we need to take time to kind of focus and understand competitive democracy. And if you haven't already, please view our video that was published 2 days ago about competitive democracy and manufactured division. I'll make a link below in the first comment so you can check that out. Now, collaborative democracy is based on the idea and concept that by working together as a community, whether that be locally in a community, statewide as a community, nationwide as a collective, or even globally as a community, as things will naturally progress in the future, that we can achieve much, much more with much greater results for the greater benefit of the greater population. Collaborative democracy kind of goes in the face of the current market paradigm that exists, which is that every man or woman is an island and will always act in their own self-interest, and therefore, and is not going to care about the collective interest. But by acting in their self-interest, they will make advancements in the community that will spread and disseminate amongst the general populace. Of course, we know statistically that that philosophy of market and economy has brought us the massive concentration of wealth that we have here in the U.S., the most massive on the planet in terms of any industrialized nation. And it brings to kind of mind a number of the flaws. Now, this is not to say that the system so far hasn't brought us a lot of success and enabled us to have the life that we live today, many of us. However, it also does say that there's room for incredible improvement. And the previous market economy and the view of the world and society was based on a time of slow communication and slow technology. We live in the opposite time now. We live in instant communication and incredibly fast, exponentially growing technology. So therefore, we make the argument here at OurSociety that the time has come to focus on a more collaborative approach that brings about the next generation of global citizenry amongst the millennials and Generation Z and even beyond that, and kind of building the framework now for that to happen. So I'm going to spend some time talking about what collaborative democracy means in terms of the OurSociety platform and the exact tangible collaborative democracy pathways we've developed, but also like what it could mean in terms of the potential for your community, your state, and the nation, and really the world as a whole coming together for these types of projects. So OurSociety, as you're aware, we have our social value matching algorithm, and that's a big part of the OurSociety experiment, is providing that content and that a way for you at home to answer questions about yourself and then be matched to candidates who are answering from the same pool of questions. The idea behind it is you may be a student, for example, a Gen Zer. I just recently completed an educational seminar, and it's like they're worried about homework. They're worried about college. They're right now, I mean, these Gen Zers who will be 18 in November to vote in the New Jersey general election will be in their first semester of college, right? So there's a lot of things going on in their life that is very challenging for them to be really accurate when it comes to their decision-making process in relation to their own values. They can pick a letter in a column and go down. They can fall prey to massive advertising. For example, a candidate spends millions of dollars on social media ads, so you just see his or her face over and over and over again, so it becomes brand recognition. Or we can have a third alternative path, which is they tell OurSociety about themselves, and OurSociety provides them a match that is based on their values. So in a sense, that is that pathway to making better decision making is one of the key elements of more collaborative democracy. So why is that? Well, of course, OurSociety is collecting all that data, and we're going to analyze all that data. So it is important for you at home to know that the answers you submit to the OurSociety value profiles do get are made anonymous. So it's not like anyone on the OurSociety staff or the team or anyone who even would access the platform can see that your name is linked to any of the question answers. We just have them separated by unique IDs. So what we can do is aggregate all the results by a location. So for example, if we say in New Jersey, all of our users you have answered this series of questions on, we'll say, animal rights, for example. And everyone in New Jersey says, or not everyone, but let's say 94% of people in New Jersey when they were telling us their values and they were telling us about their beliefs, that they suggested that animal cruelty in New Jersey should have much stricter penalties. So this is a good idea of collaborative democracy. With a number like 94%, something that isn't really a hot topic, something that isn't really talked about a lot, because thankfully we don't have a tremendous amount of animal abuse cases that I'm sure there's a lot of them, but it's not an epidemic per se where people just are cruel as the majority. So this gives our society the opportunity to aggregate the data, identify meaningful trends in the data, and then suggest cooperative projects. So again, going back to the example, let's say we had 1 million OurSociety users in New Jersey, and 94% of them agreed for stricter penalties on animal cruelty. Well, this is something we could produce, identify where it takes place by region, and then submit that information to the public. No one gets sold that information. No one has access to that information before you will. That information will come through the OurSociety platform. It'll come to OurSociety users and those people who are subscribed to our newsletter. And this way we provide that information to the public. So candidates running in New Jersey would be wise to consider that policy. And this is the big thing, is it focuses on projects that the collective majority want to a high degree. And we focus on these big projects first. And this is why I mentioned at the beginning of this video about watching the video about the competitive democracy. And that's because by focusing on more collaborative projects, we get away from the competitive democracy, which only focuses on the issues that drive us apart. By focusing on common issues and using data to drive that, we can eventually chip away at that list from the top down. So we start with 94%, maybe the next thing is 89%, so forth and so on, working our way down these collective lists of projects, all the while teaching ourselves that collaborative democracy works. It has a quicker resolution to issues. We see a much more open adoption of it. We see more experimentation, more dialogue, because it is public. Of course, our society is making all of it public. And that's really what we want to do. We want to incorporate technology into elections and into government and into issues and policy in ways that have never been done before. Right now, we just see technology being used for malicious attempts. But why not use our own data? Again, our own data that we give away freely to for-profit companies on a daily basis, to do something for the general good and to create real consensus and real understanding of the collective needs of our population. This form of collaborative democracy, we believe, is the true social movement behind our society, one of the core elements. And by removing money in politics from the process with our society, having a free and open election campaign platform, we remove the ability for individuals to dominate the conversation solely on the war chest they've acquired through corporate donations or special interest group donations. And that that empowers a lot more people to have a voice who may have otherwise avoided the situation or avoided getting involved. Now, collaborative democracy, so you understand now that, as mentioned, it's about identifying the top trends, publishing that information, and encouraging people to act on these top trends that are collaborative ones, kind of going down the list. What would that mean for national projects? What would that mean for state projects? Well, the first thing is it would create a much deeper connection, if implemented, right? This discussion at this point is now, we agree as a collective to embrace this social movement. We agree that our society is the way to do it. We hop on board. We choose candidates who are using our society platform, so forth and so on. There's mass adoption. We're able to scale. It's the best case scenario. But now what we have is we've created an environment of a more integrated and collaborative democracy at every level. Of course, now there's local municipalities, there's state, county representatives, there's state representatives, there's the Congress, right, the House of Representatives and the Senate, and then there's the President. So there's all these levels of government that, if 2018 is any witness, they're essentially fighting with each other to some extent. And we believe that that's because we don't have real data. We don't have actual truth. We have separate opinions, and of course, certain perspectives are weighted much more deeply with facts than others. However, nonetheless, people believe both sides, and that's a problem. So We think by incorporating a heavy data component to it, where everyone has the ability to participate, everyone has the same and equal voice regardless of their socioeconomic status or the amount of money they've raised for the campaigns. And as citizens, we have an equal voice, everyone contributes, and everyone gets that data at no cost. That puts us on a much more level playing field. And that's something that we're really excited about. So with that said, you would have these much more deeply integrated projects. We also hope that by providing this information, we'll create a more rapid resolution for impasse. By using data to identify the national cooperative direction, we paint a clear pathway forward for the U.S. In terms of what elected officials should be doing and should be focusing on, allowing them to better focus on actually solving the issues and spending less time debating on whether or not they should. This type of collaborative democracy also opens the doors for opportunities such as much larger and more collaborative national projects. For example, Jeremy Rifkin's book, The Third Industrial Revolution, talks about a decentralized, near-zero energy cost grid that we could install in the U.S. over the next 30 years, a completely new infrastructure project that would utilize solar and wind renewable energies. Every building would be kind of retrofitted to collect solar or wind energy, disseminating the excess energy back into the grid, and that way, during times of flux for other people, they could, buy or trade. Essentially, we'd end up trading energy credits. But the beauty of this is it ties everything into a near-zero cost economy. Right now, all of our businesses, all of our transportation are tied into the second industrial revolution, which is the fossil fuel revolution, right? Oil, gas. That's how we generate our energy. If we transform that economy into a near-zero cost energy source using all renewables, we've dramatically lowered the cost of doing anything in the U.S., which will impact our businesses, it'll impact our life, it'll impact poverty, it'll raise people to a new standard of living, it'll create much more opportunity. And even in my opinion, one of the best part is one of the reasons we have the political turmoil we do now is there's certainly a subsection of lower skilled labor in the U.S. that was feeling left out by the globalization and technological knowledge economy revolution. This provides a 30-year pathway for them to get back to work, and more importantly than work, 'cause I think it's often we talk about jobs. It's not about jobs, okay? It's never been about jobs. It's about purpose. And I think that we as a collective, especially I'm talking to you, my millennial and Gen Zers, as children of the internet, empathy is one of our strong suits. It's without a doubt we are a more empathetic generation. It's not about jobs. It's about purpose. It's about contributing to society. People want to contribute. That's what they want to do, and they want to contribute in their own way. And of course, that doesn't mean working 80 hours a week in slave labor conditions. It means having a skill and being able to implement that skill. So this type of third industrial revolution project, which we can talk about more in a later video, is just one example of a more collaborative democratic project. If you had the ability today to say, I would like a project that will create all renewable energy in the U.S. and drive down costs to a 100th of what they would be now, would you be excited about that? Of course you would, right? Your electricity bill would be reduced tremendously. We'd be completely green. And we'd have 30 years of investment in infrastructure, which would revitalize, not just our buildings, but also transportation, right? It would leave more money for roads and those kind of improvements. I mean, the list is endless. But again, this is all with a collaborative democracy. These kind of projects are very challenging in the current competitive democratic structure, because you have 50 states, and within those 50 states, independent actors acting for their own self-interest, acting for the interests of their corporate masters, people who've donated them money and campaign funds, the corporate lobbyists, right? Right now we're seeing, for example, we see the Koch brothers, they get this giant tax bill passed and they donate $500,000 to Paul Ryan's campaign. I mean, the money in politics problem is just becoming more and more apparent every day. It's becoming more apparent. Oh, I should mention the Koch brothers are going to save billions with a B. So they donated millions. They made an investment of millions of dollars to get this tax bill passed, and they're going to return billions per year investment. I mean, what an incredible investment. And again, further concentrating wealth in the hands of the already wealthiest. So this can't change until we as a people decide that we want a more collaborative approach. And that's why I encourage you to join the OurSociety Experiment. If nothing else, just to answer questions and add your voice to the pool. Because collaborative democracy could happen today. The technology exists today. It isn't a pipe dream. It isn't a 10-year plan. It's today. It's April 1st when we launch the OurSociety platform with our candidates. So that in a nutshell is kind of an overview of collaborative democracy, why our society believes that's the way forward, what we're doing about it through our data collection and public information, and why, most importantly, it relies on you to be successful. So again, thank you so much, as always, for tuning to the OurSociety Experiment. If you haven't already, go to oursociety.org, sign up for your free account, start answering questions, and even add some questions if you're curious. And we will see you next time on this Making the Movement episode.